Just FYI, a number of folks were going to stand up, and it just was in the process of ending, so we might get started here a minute late.
Jerry will not be joined today, so I'm going to host the meeting today. Hello, everyone. Today is April 15th. This is the Database Scalability Working Group weekly meeting. So let's get started to important updates. Yeah, Jerry is preparing the PG12 upgrade on staging. So unable to attend, then let's move on to what's being done. Craig?
Yeah, so all the mechanics for having a team, the sharding group, sorry, has been set up. So weekly agenda, meeting scheduled, the agenda links there. The epics are created as well, and Camille's going to talk about details of those down below, so we'll not steal his thunder there. Fabian, you've got the next item.
Yes, I met today with Camille and Yanis. We spoke about the success criteria for the working group, but also hashed out what the success criteria need to be for any solution that we implement. I think one area that requires additional work is that any solution that we implement to scale our database cannot have a negative impact on our user experience, and that needs to be quantifiable. So I think we need to make sure that we can assess and measure that appropriately. So that is something that we also need to continue and sort of establish ahead of time. So if we end up POCing more than one solution, we can actually say, okay, these are the impacts to our users, because if things end up being really slow in some instances, I don't think that's going to be acceptable.
And Camille, you have next 2 bullets.
So I think that I finished composable code bases proposal, and I see Sid writing something. Sid, maybe you can voice your comment. It's going to be better and concurrent.
Oh, yeah, I think you're saying, hey, we shouldn't confuse. I was just talking about the naming of it. I think we shouldn't confuse our goals with the implementation. I do think that the current naming has the risk that people start doing all kinds of, there's a lot of risk of misinterpretation. So if you're pretty sure you're going to go for Rails engines, I would just call it the Rails engines proposal, just to make it very clear for people what to do. But if there's still a risk of confusing the goals and the outcome, then I'm sensitive to that.
Like one of the goals of using more generic naming was like to not impose like the solution. It was to show that as one of the solutions. The problem is that this was the only solution that we validated at that point. So I think like my idea behind that proposal in that form as it is now, I'm not gonna be doing that at this moment because of the other engagement. Whoever is gonna be doing that, we're gonna have to read that and decide if the Rails engine is exactly the direction. I think the answer is probably yes. But at least from my perception, I would not like to impose this, even though it's like heavily documented and mentioned and in a number of places right now, even more places after your comment, to say that it was evaluated on Rails engines as this is like the most compelling solution for this proposal.
Okay, I'm afraid of a whole bunch of crazy microservices ideas and stuff like that. And just like your Pages solution became known as the zip solution, I think it's fine if this becomes known as the Rails engine solution. And then we're an iterative company. If there's a better solution, happy to discuss that. But
okay, so let's do something like that. I'm just gonna add as an extension to the title, race engine, and like let's keep it like that. It's gonna be pretty
Great.
like apparent, and like whoever is gonna then look at that can like change the course of that if they find like the compelling reason.
Thanks.
So I also like started talking with people, and I spent some healthy amount of time, and like started writing like different approaches how we may approach this particular problem that we have, and started writing some design goals with the anticipation that we're gonna be testing some of these solutions. I mean, with some of these like proposed approaches to see like how complex they are and like what the consequences they have. Now I kind of probably spent most of the time on the application level sharding for various reasons, and also like spend some effort on thinking like how the potential proposal could look like and iterations for that proposal. And like, I mean, it's very raw, it's very preliminary, it's like was done today, but it was following Sid, your idea of like co-locating top level groups and seeing how we could maybe use this to iterate on that. I'm kind of like expecting that there are gonna be more proposals like to evaluate. I'm just kind of expecting that once more people start joining, working with the team, we just start validating these things, how complex they are to actually implement at GitLab. Because to be honest, like it's great on the paper, but like I'm just curious like how expensive it is to do like database level partitioning and what would be broken, and the same for the application level sharding, how complex would be to have many databases, many shards, many logical or physical databases supported from the single application. So that's at least like the work progress from my side.
Cool. Thanks. Great to see that language there. I'm sold on sharding Gitly per project. That was the right decision. So thanks for your explanation there last time. I'm not sold on the elastic sharding per project yet. I think we should shard per top level group there. So I'd love to see the kind of what are the implications of sharding per project? Like what if you search in a group? How do we bring that together? And also like to see like what would be the implication if we switch that to top level namespace sharding.
So I maybe want to add to that. I think like Sid, it's like not the problem only of the Elasticsearch. I kind of think like it's more the problem of all our different data stores that we have, which is also like, for example, Redis. And now, like if we improve the resiliency of the database with, let's say, application sharding, then like we're gonna have a single point of failure being Redis. So then I guess my question really is like, I think we should consider like how we do shard like the data holistically, which kind of takes into account all the like data stores that are associated with the given entity. Because I know that like we use Redis extensively. Right now we shard Redis by the function. We have different Redis for the persistent cache data, but it also gives you that if there is like the problem with the Redis at any point, if we now start sharding application and we build like the logic that we are fine with the degradation of one of the databases that we connect to, it's still like the noisy neighbor can affect like all other customers. So I think like my perception about the sharding in this context is like to figure out exactly how we could handle like this kind of a way to contain all the data stores for the given group to ensure that if only like one part of the GitLab is not misbehaving, let's say that's 10% of the group, it doesn't truly affect anymore than that, and GitLab can still function. That's at least my perception after thinking about the database sharding, but I think it has long-lasting implications for all other sharding techniques as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I think we're going to end at sharding our top level namespace, and then we should shard everything. So not just the database, but also Elastic on that level, also Redis on that level. Also the application servers, we're going to have specific application servers. We're going to allow you to also bound certain shard to certain regions. So I don't want to leave the European Union with any of that data. And I think we've shown that like with a single database, we can handle hundreds of thousands of users. So that's great. I think a top level namespace, it's okay if you can't have more than 100,000 people in a top level namespace and limit it to that. If you're a bigger organization, you need to use more top level namespaces. But that will allow us to, on that namespace level, kind of have analytics and statistics and everything else within the database without having to join across databases, without having to join search results across Elasticsearch clusters, without having to join Redis results across Redis clusters, greatly simplifying this effort.
So I was actually thinking about that, and this is maybe like why my perception was about the project versus group, and maybe this is where this kind of confusion that came out of. Like, if we like define like the smallest shardable entity as a project, we have possible iterations in the future if we really need to first to shard based on the group and all the let's like the first possible iteration could be we shard on the top level group. But then if we notice this to be like a contention point, we can then shard on the group, which is like could be a subgroup of this top level group and do aggregation. And then if this is not enough, we could move into sharding by project with the intent that we may read data from many shards. It could be like 1, 2, 3, which could be like some kind of finite amount of the shards, but kind of still like perform the aggregation. So maybe this is why I was always saying about the project, because the project is the smallest but very big entity at which we look at that may be useful in the future, but we can now do this simplification about the affinity of the data because we don't really maybe then have to change too many aspects of the application today, starting like from very simple concept to like very broad to something more defined over time when it's really needed.
I think this would be helpful to record. Are you okay with doing our recording already? I can't live stream. I think this is exactly the conversation that we should be having. So thanks for that, Camille. I think that saying, hey, we're going to shard on the project because it's the most atomic level, and then we have that optionality. I'm worried about 3 things. First of all, Yakni, you ain't going to need it. Like, don't do something to have future flexibility because it comes with a cost. And that cost is immediate. There's an immediate negative impact. If you shard per project, now you most of the time they will be on the same server, but in your queries, you can't really rely on that.
I think we misunderstood to some extent. I'm saying that like we allow the smallest possible entity to be a project if we look at the transferring that entity, but we truly like define a current sharding scheme as in one of these proposals as a top level group. So we guarantee from the application level that if you access the hierarchy up to the top level group, you have guaranteed that all of data is collocated.
But
this contract can break later, but it's the contract that we make today. That this is like the top level, but like the smallest possible entity that we move, because we need to have this entity to be movable. Because, for example, you may move project between groups or groups between groups. This is like the smallest entity that we consider as a movable entity.
I don't understand how that would look. Like, I think suppose you move a project. How does that look like moving that from a database server to another database server? I can see all of the projects being on the same database server, but being in separate databases. And then I think you still have the negative impact, like you still have to do a cross database query to get top level metrics. So I'm not sure I'm understanding your proposal.
It's very preliminary, like we didn't validate it. But at least my perception is like that if we start by the top level group, we always ensure that your project is always on that chart as a top level group. So like the project move right now is immediate because we only change the reference in the database. In the model, when we say that your project is collocated, we effectively need to move the data from one database to another, which can be fine because it's a conscious operation of the user to make. It goes to the settings, it clicks transfer a project. Right now it's immediate. Maybe if this is the model that we take, maybe it's not immediate. Maybe it takes 1 minute or maybe 3 minutes, how long it takes to transfer data. But it's a conscious decision with a downtime with the decision made by the user that we need to rebalance the data because our sharding scheme says that your data is on the different chart. So we always maintain like this locality of the data. We never break that contract to ensure that we don't ever execute cross-database queries because they will misbehave.
Can I restate what you're saying and see if this helps resolve it? So when I hear what you're saying, what I hear is that we shard on the project because it's the smallest element, but then what that allows you to do at a higher level is basically as a business rule, say, well, all projects are going to be guaranteed to be on the same physical database server. So you have the atomicity that you're looking for, but you're still addressing Sid's concern of not having things spread across physical databases where queries suddenly take 10 minutes.
My concern is having things spread across different databases, not across different database servers, because then a lot of the stuff that people pay us for would be cross database queries, and those are slower.
Yeah, so and what Sid I think has heard, and I'm basing this off our one-on-one a week ago, is that Sid has heard that we are proposing a database per project, but I'm not hearing Camille say a database per project.
No, I'm saying that like there is a potential that like a smallest entity that we may move is a project, but now we define we design a system in a way that we guarantee that on that same database, project and all associated, like the top level group and all the projects of the top level group are on the same database, because we assume that the most of the features that people use are on the group level, and there is only a handful of the features that they use on the instance-wide level, which could be like to-dos, explore function, user issues, user merge request, but the majority things that they do, they really on the group level, like issue search of all the projects or some other features that may, of course, change to some extent, because we now consider some features that may be cross groups. I think there was some mention about like creating relations between issues in different epics that could be like living in different group. But this would be like in one of these proposals, it would be the main design rule that everything that is of the top group is on the same.
The only time someone's data would be spread across physical databases where suddenly things take a long time is actually when
what
they
is a physical database
to migrate data, and they know that their data is unavailable while we're migrating it. So their data is never spread across physical servers where suddenly queries need to be aggregated.
Eric, you cannot use database and database server interchangeably. Those are very different things.
So what do we want to say just to distinguish like a database in US versus a database in Europe?
No, database server is like a Postgres server, something like that. A database is within a database server, you can run multiple databases.
Right. So I haven't heard people propose that we're running multiple databases on a database server with one project each. I haven't heard that, but That was your concern a couple of days ago, Sid. So maybe Camille can just clarify whether or not that's part of his
Sure.
proposal.
Okay, this is like very first proposal. I prefer to say and make this clear distinction: physical databases and logical databases. You can have many logical databases on the physical server, and effectively, this is, for example, one of the suggestions that I received from the Gerir today, that we may really want to use a smaller amount of the physical servers to collocate more logical databases, because in despite that these logical databases did grow significantly, we move them completely like to the physical servers.
I'm
But
okay with what I care about is that what customers pay us for is the list under G3: audit events, audit reports, code analytics, insights, portfolio management, security dashboards. I think that it's really important that we have everything in a group. Many of these features are group level. Everything in a group should be in the same logical database so that all of this works really simple and well.
That's one of the proposals exactly that I'm discussing.
Yep. But then I don't understand how that is compatible with shard per project. Then I don't know, then I don't understand what shard per project means. If, of course, I'm for kind of moving projects. I think that moving is just a moving functionality, but I don't understand why it would be called shard per project if you have the entire group in the same logical database.
So maybe it's more like the problem of my semantics and like the potential possibility of considering that if in the future we did grow a single database, we may consider sharding by more by not this top level entity, but more like a sub-level entity. So I think like to be more clear, like this is more like, I guess, semantic problem in one of these proposals.
Okay.
Because like it kind of really describes like your proposal of like we collocate all data for the top level. We ensure that if you move a project, we move this data physically from one logical database to another logical database to fulfill this expectation that all data are collected.
Of course, you should be able to move projects. So everyone's in agreement there. I think zooming out a bit, I would say, look, if we have top level namespaces in different logical databases, we have 2 orders of magnitude improvement in performance. I think our biggest top level namespace is taking up less than 1% of our database queries, or at least I hope. Sharding per project would be another 2 orders of magnitude. And I think it comes with a huge additional cost in user experience and code complexity. And I really want to caution us against biting off that much if it's just not needed now, and it's not needed even when we're at 10 million users.
I agree with this statement, and this is more like taking that into consideration. If it's needed, what would be the path if it is needed to like compare to the current proposed architecture?
Yeah, I think we should look at that. But what I'm also seeing is that like we're sharding Elasticsearch per project instead of per group. And I think it's a mistake. And I'm just really worried that people are going to default to project. And that's what I'm really trying to warn against.
Yeah, so this is Fabian. I think my understanding is we're actually all in agreement that any solution that actually gets evaluated needs to be evaluated against the functionalities that Sid put in point 3i. I don't quite know how to pronounce it, because those are the things that need to continue to work at least as well as they do now, right? Ideally, they actually get better. And so I think the proposals that Camille made, and I think there's maybe more than one way ultimately to accomplish this, should be evaluated against this, because if they're not performing and they're degrading that user experience, I don't think we're winning anything, right? We need to solve our scalability issue and keep that in mind. I think that's probably the most important evaluation criteria, at least to me. Obviously, there's the technical complexity and other things as well, but I think that's That's how I understand the requirements here on a high level.
Thanks for that.
It said, yeah, I agree. Me saying physical database and database, that's not a good terminology set. So I asked Chen to update the glossary to Camille's terminology, physical database, logical database. And if we always use those, then it's very clear which one we're referring to. But I do think I think we agree more than it seems from that discussion. So.
Hey, Chen, can you take a follow-up action as well to address Sid's concern around Elasticsearch and search by project? It feels like you did not answer that question well, and we need a more tighter answer on what our plans are, as well as how we think about sharding for Elasticsearch.
Yes, I will work with CZ to get information assembled together and what we are planning to do. Yeah.
Thanks, Christopher. Appreciate it. And I think the outcome of that will be like, now that we think about it, the group results are slightly worse because we can't really have Elastic do that. We need to do it at the application level. And I don't think that's a good trade-off. But let's do the investigation and looking forward to those results.
Yeah, we have an issue about the sharding strategy for the Elasticsearch. Yeah, happy to communicate asynchronously or even synchronously. We can also summarize our current investigation in a more detailed form and share with the group.
Cool.
Andres, I think you had an issue. You researched top-level namespace and sharding a while ago, so I just want to refresh my memory. What were the pitfalls? If you could link that in the doc, that would be helpful.
Yeah, it's in the handbook. I think I have it right here.
Okay, we are 1 minute over. Quickly go through the blockers. Jerry is working on the PG12 upgrade today on staging and this weekend on the production environment. So that's a blocker he is dealing with. Other discussion items, do we want to discuss today or move to next meeting?
I'm fine with moving mine.
Okay, we'll move to next meeting. Yeah. Okay, what's happening? Camille will continue work on the refining the design docs, and also Camille will talk to Nick. Fabian will work on understanding how our existing QA tools measure the performance. Okay, that's the meeting for today. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you next Monday.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Stan, I just linked it on the 20 XR.
All right, thank you.
Yep. See you.